Welcome back, everyone. The iPhone 13 mini just came out, so let's go ahead and compare it against the iPhone XS and see which specific iPhone you should go and pick up, whether you should go and upgrade from your XS to a 13 mini. Now, I will leave both of these phones linked down in the description below, so you can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see the iPhone XS is a much bigger iPhone. You have a 5.8-inch OLED panel on the iPhone XS, where you actually have a 5.4-inch panel, it's OLED panel on the iPhone 13 mini. Now, both of them look pretty good. I think that my XS display is faulty for some reason, but I've owned like 5 XSs and all of them have looked very, very good for sure. But you can see that there is a little bit of a difference in terms of the notch. You do have a much, bigger notch on the iPhone XS than on the iPhone 13 mini. But ultimately, like I stated, it's not that big of a difference, mostly because it doesn't really bring any functionality, and it is actually a little bit taller than the iPhone XS. So it is pretty interesting that they put a taller notch on a newer phone when it's smaller in terms of length or whatever. So I'm not too sure what's going on there, but it's totally okay. You have lightning ports on the bottom. In terms of the side, a little bit of a difference. So I think the iPhone XS is a little bit of a thicker phone, but they're both fairly similar. But the iPhone 13 mini has this flat side, which is nice. But the chassis of the iPhone XS is so much better feeling. I mean, this is stainless steel on this phone, where the iPhone 13 mini, I think this is aluminum or whatever. I'm not too sure even if there's a difference between them. But the iPhone XS feels much better in terms of the, outside, I would say, than the iPhone 13 mini. And on the back, I have a skin on the iPhone XS, but you have pretty much the same exact glass back on both of these iPhones, which look really good. I have no complaints about it. I like the frosted glass back that the 12 Pro and 13 Pro and 11 Pro have, but these are totally fine too, and I don't really have too many complaints about it. You have dual camera setups on both. You have power buttons on the left side. You have IP certification on both. Wireless charging, you do have the MagSafe capability on the iPhone 13 mini, and that really pretty much covers it up on the outside. There really isn't anything else super crazy between these that are completely different, but a big thing that's probably the biggest differentiating factor between these is the longevity. The iPhone XS came out in 2018, so it's already pushing 3 years old. It's already over 3 years old. And a big thing to keep in mind is that with a phone like an iPhone XS, although it's still supported, although it's still going to be here for a couple more years, you are going to be getting a much longer lasting phone, at least by a couple years, on the iPhone 13 mini than on the iPhone XS. So that is a big thing to keep in mind. If you want a phone that's going to last you the longest amount of time right now, the iPhone 13 mini is the best way to go. This phone is going to take you from point A to point B. It's going to be one of the best phones you can pick up right now. If you want a phone that's going to last you for the longest amount of time for iPhones right now, the iPhone 13 mini is definitely the better way to go. But like I mentioned, the iPhone XS isn't too far behind. It's a couple years behind, so it is kind of far, but you're still getting software support on both these phones, so you're not really missing out on too much on either one of these. So in terms of that covers it up here. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these iPhones. Now, the iPhone XS has that Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 13 mini has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM as well. So let's go and see which one is the faster iPhone between both of these. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can see. So let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Pretty much the same thing, not a big difference. Let's do their app stores, 3, 2, 1. And I think the 13 mini was faster. The iPhone XS did get into a little bit of a different pop-up. So let's kind of go through here, see if there's a difference. And they both kind of seem like the same thing. I don't really see that big of a difference in terms of sliding from one app to the other too. Pretty much the same type of animation. Let's get into cameras, 3, 2, 1. Let's get into photos. And it was actually a little bit faster on the iPhone 13 mini, which is good. Mail, 3, 2, 1. 13 mini again is the faster one. Let's go and get into clock, 3, 2, 1. And I think the 13 mini is faster, and they both did a pretty good job there. We can go into calendar, 3, 2, 1. We may get a pop-up on both. Actually, they both were pretty much the same thing. We can go and get into something like podcasts, which I guess I don't have here, 3, 2, 1. Again, the pop-up slightly faster on the iPhone 13 mini. And we can go and get into something like settings. Now, this is an app that I always love testing, 3, 2, 1. And almost the same thing here too. With an app like settings, because it really doesn't take too much power, it's always interesting to see the differences between those. Now we do have a bunch of these third-party applications we can go ahead and test out. So let's get into it. Let's do snake versus blocks, 3, 2, 1. And the 13 mini is faster. The iPhone XS a little bit behind. Gameplay wise, I really don't think there's going to be that big of a difference. Hopping out of this specific game, let's go and get it to thank you. 3, 2, 1. And I hit the camera like 15 times every speed comparison. And the 13 mini is faster. iPhone 10 is slightly behind. Not as big of a difference as I thought it was going to be. Let's do Dropbox. 3, 2, 1. 13 mini again is a faster one by a little bit. Let's go and get into Quizlet. 3, 2, 1. 13 mini again is the faster one there. We can go into Bofa. 3, 2, 1. 13 mini again is a faster one. iPhone 10s a little bit behind right there. Let's go and get into Netflix. 3, 2, 1. Again, 13 mini I think is a faster one. Let's go and get into Snapchat. 3, 2, 1. Pretty much the same thing, not a big difference. Twitter. 3, 2, 1. I think 13 mini again is a faster one. Let's go and get into Temple Run 2. 3, 2, 1. And you can see 13 mini is pretty much flying past the iPhone 10s. Now the 10s may have been on that downloading config, whatever it was. So again, if they were both on the same panel, they should have been on the same panel because I've been doing the same test on them. And you can see the iPhone 10s was definitely a little bit slower than the iPhone 13 mini. Nothing super crazy. And we can end it off with, I think that pretty much covers up most of the apps. So pretty much we can do stack 3, 2, 1. But pretty much we're kind of getting the consensus that the iPhone 13 mini is definitely faster than the iPhone 10s, and that is always something I love seeing. You are spending more money on an iPhone 13 mini, so we expect that phone to be faster, and that is something that I prefer. I don't want the older phone to be faster or slower, but I will tell you the iPhone 10s did a great job. I was surprised how good of a performing phone that the iPhone 10s was. I wasn't expecting it for that phone to be doing as good as it did. There may have been some glitches, there may have been some other stuff here and there, but the 10s is still a very good performing phone, and I have very few complaints about it for sure. So in terms of that covers it up here. Now let's go and hit on the cameras. And like I mentioned, dual camera setups on both. You have a wide angle lens, telephoto lens on the iPhone 10s, but you have a wide angle lens and an ultra wide sensor on the iPhone 13 mini. Now you can do 4K at 60 on the back of both of these, but the front, you can only do 1080p at 60 on the 10s, or you can do full 4K at 60 on the iPhone 13 mini. Now with the iPhone 10s and the UIs on both, they are more similar than not, like I mentioned. As you can see, pretty much the same thing, not a big difference, which is insane because Apple could have done way more for the newer cameras, but they really haven't. You have the same portrait mode and everything like that, but you do have this new cinematic mode on the iPhone 13 mini, which is very cool. You don't have this capability on the 10s. You may be able to do it with some, video editing skills, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's a definitely really cool feature. It's like portrait mode for video, and I'm a huge fan for it. Now with the iPhone 10s camera, this has been a very solid camera for sure. Like I've mentioned for the last several years, this has been a very good camera. You can really do anything with it. It's still solid. My only complaint about it is that it doesn't have an ultra-wide sensor. I much more prefer a ultra-wide sensor over a telephoto lens, but there may be some people out there who prefer a telephoto lens over an ultra-wide sensor. So you have the ability of zooming in a lot on the iPhone 10s. We have the ability on the iPhone 13 mini of zooming out a lot. So the quality is definitely better on the 13 mini, the capability is better on the 13 mini, but this is still not a bad camera without a doubt. Now with the 13 mini, this is definitely one of the best iPhone cameras you can pick up nowadays. It has every capability that you'd ever want. You can zoom in still quite a bit, but not as much as the iPhone 10s, but you can zoom out a lot, which is one of my favorite things about these newer iPhones is the ultra-wide sensor. Now on top of this, like I mentioned, the cinematic mode is awesome, but you also have the 4K at 60 on the front and the back, as opposed to the 10s only having 4K at 60 on the back. You have 1080p at 60 on the front, but the iPhone 13 mini definitely wins, in my opinion, in the camera setup department. So now, to be completely honest, I will probably tell you, if you have an iPhone 10s, I would honestly recommend keeping it. I don't think going from the 10s to a 13 mini is the move, but I do think going from the iPhone 10s to something like an iPhone 13 Pro is probably a better choice. That phone has way more features than either one of these phones, and I think that phone is worth more of the money than I think a 13 mini or a 13. But between these two, I would much rather have a 13 mini. This phone has much better battery life, much better performance, has a longer future in front of it, better camera, all that good stuff. This is a very solid phone. But with something like an iPhone 10s, this phone is not going anywhere. It's still here. It still looks almost the same as the iPhone 13 mini. It feels about the same as the 13 mini in the hand. The 13 mini is smaller for sure, but this phone doesn't feel, like a super slow or super, cheap phone. This still feels like $1,000 plus phone. On top of that, it's still supported. It's still very good in performance, still very good in camera. Overall, I have very few things to complain about this specific phone. If I had to pick up one, like I mentioned, I would definitely pick up an iPhone 13 mini because it has more features, that has better battery life, but I still think the iPhone XS is a beautiful phone and I would highly recommend you guys to pick this phone up too. So, in terms of that, that covers it up here. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.